Welcome to the Bootblack corner where better footsteps in life are made. I know this is a new, fresh start to the episode. There's a fresh feeling to the podcast as well. I'm on video, looks weird, but I decided to push myself after having a conversation with a friend. And in actual fact, the person I had the conversation with will be on the second episode. So this is season 2, episode 1. For those who were there before, thank you for staying and thank you for believing because you guys kept asking me what's happening. And now we're finally on YouTube. And my mantra is to not start over, but to start better. And I'm all about starting better now. I'm all about pushing myself to the limit and just trying to see how far my boundaries can go. Those that know me know that I'm not very social and that I don't really um, find myself in these type of spaces. But I'm doing this because um, there's a bigger dream, there's a bigger vision to it, and it requires me to do so. Before I start this episode, though, I just want to just bring out some protocols that's going to happen. The podcast will still air on the other platforms, that being Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podcasts, etc. It's just going to be on YouTube now. I'm just going to see how I can, work with it in terms of the sound and stuff. But it will still air on those other platforms. That's number one. Number two, episodes will come out bi-weekly, so after every 2 weeks. I'm going to make it on Wednesdays. I don't know the time yet, but on Wednesdays, just remember, like, this episode will come out, the video as well as the audio. I don't mind whether you listen to the audio or the video, but if you do, I must say this YouTube thing, please just like, subscribe, and also comment on the topic that we're going to have here because it's a question and I think it's a conversation that we can have on the comments. It's the conversation we can have outside. So yeah, have an email as well. It's the bootblackcorner@gmail.com. So if you also have an idea or you want to collaborate, anything, you can email me and have and send an email and we'll get back to you. The socials will come out by the time this episode comes out. The socials will be out as well on Instagram as well. So yeah, I think protocol is done. Let's get into the topic. So this topic is a question, and the question that I'm asking you today is: failure your friend? Do you see failure as your friend, or do you see failure as your enemy? Are you competing with failure, or are you working with it? Is like the success of success, or rather the achievement of success, the downfall of failure? I know I'm getting very deep on it, and it's like, why are we back to the deep conversations? It's important to have them, and I will explain in the future as to why, or later in this video as to why I'm bringing this up. But I want you to keep asking yourself that question and to write it down so that you can see where we're going. So, are you seeing failure as your friend, or are you seeing failure as your enemy? It's important to understand how you perceive failure because the way you perceive failure determines how you react to it. And I've seen it with other people, I've seen it with myself. The moment I face failure, the moment I've failed, if I don't get in tune with how I'm perceiving it, the reaction towards it is I can't determine it. It can, anything can happen, and it's important for us to start with the perception we have of failure when we fail, and then move towards the reaction, and then move towards the action. There are many different levels to which you have to go through when you fail, and I'm not there to speak on them. And believe that I'm not qualified to speak on them as well. I just want to talk about the perception of it, and when you have failed, it's important to understand that we must perceive something first before then we react to it. And so these questions beg to the perception of failure. And I know we fail at a lot of things. I mean, I failed at many things. And the thing about failure, it's very complex because You can fail in things and understand I failed. And then there's those things where you failed at that you feel like I shouldn't have failed, or it shouldn't be my burden to carry. Sometimes maybe you've been done wrong, whether it's through a business partner, friendships, relationships, whatever it is that you were growing, and it just doesn't work. And sometimes you feel, but I was doing everything right. Now I must carry the burden of that failure. That it must be on me that I failed, that it's failed. And so it's important to really understand that failure in itself is bigger than just what it is. It's more, and it's very complex. It has different situations and reacts in different ways. And it's important that we see um, the complexity in it. I'm not going to really talk too much about the complexity about it because I'll speak about it just in a few minutes. Um, but I wanted to bring that out. I also wanted to bring out that, have you realized that failure comes from an expectation? The reason why you failed is because you've expected something to happen and it didn't happen. And it's unfortunate that you have expectations every day. There's not a single person that wakes up this morning and doesn't have expectation. You yourself, by watching this, you have an expectation that this thing will either educate me or provide some entertainment or evoke something or motivate me, whatever the case may be. You have an expectation, and if whatever does not meet that expectation, it's seen as a failure sometimes. So it's important to understand that you've got expectations every day, and the problem is we keep making too many expectations, giving us a larger risk to failure. And it's important that we evaluate how we see failure, as I said before, especially immediately as it happens. You know, the moment you have seen that you failed or you're in cognizance of your failure, it's important to evaluate it and be conscious so that you can create a perception of it, a mindset of it. That's the most important thing, is to say that I need to have a mindset of my failure so that I can perceive it as something and then react to it in this way and then have an action to it in this way. There's this thing, and the reason why I'm being deep, I'm sure people are coming like, ah, it's becoming deep now. We really unpacking this thing. It could be so simple. The thing that I'm coming to you with is that, and this is something that really resonates in my life that I've realized works for me, is that I believe that life is simple, but adversity is not simple. Life in itself is simple. It's very easy for me to be happy. It's very easy for me to be excited. It's very easy for me to have joy. Those feelings come naturally, especially to the human. And sometimes it's like I'm so happy I can't even explain it because it's very simple. It's at its ground roots. But adversity in itself is very not. It's complex. And once I realized that, I started to see the reasons as to why it's complex. Ask yourself, why is it that when you're going through anxiety, when you're going through depression, when you're going through a state of adversity, you require large amounts of help? You've got psychiatrists, you've got psychologists, therapists, social workers. If you're in debt, you've got debt counselors. You've got adversity in itself, it's complex, but life is simple. And once you realize that when you face adversity, it requires more of you. And if you don't understand that, then you will fall into that notion that some things are above you. And so it's important to deal with the complexity of failure so that when I do face failure, I don't make it me, and I can actually get out of it because I've understood that it's complex. And for those who've been to therapy and you know, you always asked how you feel, and they will always get into the deep detail of how you feel. So I am sad is not enough because there are different types of sad. different types of synonyms that actually relate to your situation more than the word sad. So you can be, I feel, you can feel, you can feel done wrong by, you can feel abused, you can feel violated. And a lot of people will say these types of topics, or say these types of things rather, because it's very complex and we have to really get to the root of it. So this is why I'm coming with this deep topic, because I understand that adversity is complex, and because I've taken heed to the complexity of adversity, I can then live a simple life. I do this so that my life can be simple, that I can actually just be happy. And when I'm happy, I can just be happy. And when I'm joyful, I can just be joyful. And I don't have to worry about the bad things or the things that I have to fight with, the battles that I have, because I've understood that it's very complex and I've taken the time, taken the effort, built the muscle to fight it, so that when I can be happy, I can just focus on being happy. On the topic, let's just talk about it. Do you see failure as an enemy, or do you see failure as a friend? I'm just going to give just sort of like a description of how I see it, and the attitudes that come with it, and you can decide whether you're on one side or another. Another question begs um, to this topic is that, can they both coexist? Can you be a failure? Can you see failure as a friend in one situation and see it as an enemy in another situation? A side note is I'm going to use enemy and competition interchangeably. I know they're not really synonymous, but I'm going to use them synonymously to say, basically, I just wanted to use enemy so that it just evokes something in you. But basically, I just mean, are you seeing failure as the opposing side of whatever you're working on, or are you seeing it as someone that's next to you, working with you? So, as I stated before, seeing failure as your competition is seeing failure as something you have to defeat, something you have to conquer. So, that's seeing failure as an enemy. The attitudes that I've realized with those that see failure as an enemy, and sometimes myself as well, is relentlessness. That's the one keyword. I'm gonna have two keywords. One keyword that I see is relentlessness. Relentlessness. These are people who are relentless with their goals, relentless about winning, relentless about achieving the best. It's people who want to prove something to failure rather than having to sit with it, to be in comfort with it. And you see that in those people who have a vision, who have a dream, and as much as they will fail at something, they're just relentless. People who are up every day doing it. Those people who see failure as a competition. The other key word that I have with these type of people is that they feel discomfortable, or they feel uncomfortable rather. They have a feeling of discomfort when failure comes in front of them. What I mean by that is that when they hit by failure, they take it to the chin. It feels like a loss. So this doesn't mean that they fail worse, or that their failure far exceeds the people who don't see failure like this, but it just means that it feels like a loss, as I said before, rather than a learning curve. And as much as it's like a loss, and I know you can learn from losses, sometimes in most cases they feel like it's a loss that they feel they didn't need to lose. It's a loss that could have been avoided. So the two key words is discomfort and relentlessness. That's what I see from people who see failure as an enemy. Now, we're talking about failure as a friend now, and I'm sure this is one that everyone has spoken about, and I'm sure you probably resonate with it. Sometimes you can resonate with both. I actually want you to speak on it and explain, can they both coexist? Do they both coexist in your life? um but yeah, with seeing failure as a friend, it can also be beneficial to the mindset of failure, but it's basically seeing failure as something you work with, something that is in relationship with you. It's a friend. It's in relationship with you. And the attitudes or actions that I see that come with this failure, and the two keywords, number one is redirection. Redirection. These are people, when they've failed, it gives them some insight about where they are. It for them, that failure is an indication that maybe they're doing something wrong, or they're doing whatever they're doing it the wrong way. So it's either they shouldn't be doing this thing, or they're doing it the wrong way. So they see failure as redirection. And the next one is grief, because they connect. Because they see it as redirection, they have to grieve that failure. These are people that sit with that failure for a long time. It is beneficial to them. Don't get me wrong. As I said, these things may be positive or negative or disadvantages or advantages based on whatever you believe. But these are people who have to go through failure. They have to question the failure. They have to go through the emotions. They need to console with the failure. They have to grieve that failure. So I just want you to think of these things as you go through whatever you go through, and realize, when this thing happened, how did I perceive it? Did I perceive it as a friend, or did I perceive it as an enemy? Um, when I speak about these topics, I normally have a conversation with a friend, and every time we have arguments or heated conversations about topics, we always just like, okay, fine, let's look at the dictionary about it. Like, let's look and see what this thing actually says. Um, and I'm not trying to say that the dictionary is okay. The dictionary is correct, but it may not be able. It's not. It may not be relatable to your situation. But alas, I wanted to use this definition to bring into perspective what we're speaking about. And I went to look for the definition of failure. And the definition of failure here is, if failure is the lack of success. Another one says the neglect or omission of expected or required action. But that part hit me that, it's a lack of success. Those are very unsettling words. And I think that's why people despise failure, because when you think about this definition, it's hard for you not to believe that when you fail, you lack success, and you feel like a failure. You understand? You feel like you won't succeed. And so I get why the perception of failure already is not in your favor, because the moment you do fail, you have this thought that, I'm not successful, I've failed, I am a failure. You start to now personalize it, which becomes a problem. And then I started to think, because normally when I speak on these topics, I really have to go out and think and research and speak to myself and read books and see where is this thought leading me to. And after going through and seeing, I mean, I'm not going to really do a case study on any of these, on successful people. You can do it yourself. I mean, there are many successful people that have a full grown success in their life, and they have many opinions about failure, and we all know them. And I think it helps us, it motivates us every time we fail. But I just wanted to point out, in all of these people, they don't live by this definition. Successful people don't live by the actual definition of failure. They don't believe it's a lack of success. For them, failure is a counsel of success rather than the lack thereof. It's not that they don't they don't feel like they're successful, but it helps them to reach success. And I think if we can change that mindset to say it's a counsel, for my success and not the lack of it. And even though it is the definition and even though it's correct, it doesn't mean you have to live by that definition. So today, I'm here starting this new part of this podcast, starting better, as I said before, after countless trials and tribulations, filled with failure, and trying this podcast journey again, just believing that maybe whatever I failed in and failed to do in the past presents a step closer to my success. And my quote, or rather my message to my future self, I will explain a bit later why I have these quotes or have these messages. But my future self, my messages to my future self, you may not have the answer to everything. And this may be one of them. But it's important to reflect and find peace at the decisions you've already made, even if they've made you fail. And so today, I just want you to go think about this and also comment below how you see failure, how you perceive failure. And let us have a conversation. Sometimes the answer is not in what I'm saying, it's just evoking thought. Sometimes we just trying to make you think. It's just about thinking. The quote I'm leaving you with is from Robin Sharma, and the quote that he has on failure is failure is greatness waiting to happen. So may you fail and get up again and fail and get up again because it is greatness waiting to happen. So that wraps up the first episode of season 2, a new way of doing things, a new way of trying things. And I hope I can get better at this. As I said, like I'm starting better, but it doesn't mean I'm perfect. I'll definitely get better at this. And I mean, this is just the start of another chapter as well. But yeah, may this week, may this month, may this year bring out the best in you. Until next time, peace, guys.